What he's going for instead is a series of European regulations that he says impedes trade from the US. That's about a lot of things. That's about food standards, climate policy, big tech platform, taxation.
You're listening to EU Watchdog Radio.
Hi, Marcella.
Hi, Joanna. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm enjoying the Southern European summer. How are
Yes,
you? Still in the Brussels bubble?
I'm sweating in Brussels and counting the minutes to depart and to finally enjoy some holidays.
Nice. Well, we're here again for another episode of EU Watchdog Radio. But before we dive into it, there is a little announcement that we would like to do. Do you want to go for it?
Yes, it's with a lot of sadness that I want to announce that Chiara left Counterbalance, and we will always remember her great episode with Varoufakis, which broke the algorithm, and we
Yeah.
look forward to see what is happening next.
Yes, that episode got almost 15,000 views on YouTube, so it was really amazing. And yeah, we wish Chiara all the best. We hope to continue to run into her in Brussels, but we will miss her voice.
And they're great episodes. But then move to the topic that brings us together today. It's summer, so we decide to stay hot. And it's going to be about the tariffs that Trump wants to impose on the EU starting from August 1st. It was supposed to be 50% a few weeks ago, and now we're talking more towards 30, still quite awful. And then the deregulation wave. So not a heat wave, but another kind of wave as well.
Yeah, and for that, we have talked to our colleague, Kenneth Haar, who has been doing a lot of research into this topic and who has recently published an article called A Crash Course on the EU's Deregulation Wave.
So basically, it's how to make this topic a bit more understandable for all of us.
Yeah. So if you're the kind of person that falls asleep whenever you hear the sound of something like omnibus or stress testing or, those kinds of very, very tedious sounding, I don't know, bureaucratic lingo of the EU, I mean, this episode is for you because it's going to be understandable.
If you wonder what the Commission means when they say simplification, then tune in.
So thank you very much, Kenneth. Trump has announced the tariffs, and in the middle of the whirlwind that are Trump's announcements that are unpredictable and kind of going in every direction, what will the implementation of the tariffs, what will it mean for the EU?
It would mean a massive loss of trade to the US. He's threatening with a full 50% tariffs on European goods.
As Marcella mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and like with all things Trump, there was a difference between what was being said at the time that we recorded the podcast and now that I am editing it. So at the time, the tariffs were announced to be 50% for the EU, and now they are down to 30%. Still very high. And what Kenneth is going to say about them when he thought they would be 50% still applies.
And that's massive. That's a level where European companies would definitely not be able to compete with American companies on the US market. So it will mean a pretty sharp reduction in trade from Europe to the US. It will mean it will lead to loss of jobs and loss of income. So yeah, on the European side, it's pretty clear that there will be. This is not an attractive scenario, nor is it for the U.S. because it will give loads of American companies problems because they would have to, whenever they want some spare parts or whatever from Europe, they would have to pay a very, very high price for it. So I mean, in the end, many have said it that actually this is something that will hurt the United States as much as others. In fact, I mean, there's reason to believe that it will be more hurtful to the U.S. economy than to the European one.
I wanted to ask you what is the logic behind those tariffs, because you said that they are not convenient for the US and they are not convenient for the EU.
There are there are two logics behind it. The first is that it can serve as a weapon to make other countries, in this case the European Union, give concessions on trade to the U.S. and whatever. I mean, any kind of concession that would enrich American companies or support the American economy. That's one set of logic. That's one logic. The other logic is that, I mean, behind all this is very much a desire by Trump to have industry relocate back to the U.S. So if to the extent that he can make companies set up shop in the U.S., that will be considered a win.
And which sectors in regarding the European companies, which sectors will be more affected by it? And is there no alternative to the trade with the US? So they cannot they just change who they export to?
Well, I mean, that's if we begin with the last question, yes, they can change. I mean, they would hardly be able to change to. I mean, they will hardly be able to annul the whole damage done. But surely, I mean, that's what many European companies are doing. That's what I can tell from newspapers that European companies are seeking new markets instead of the U.S. Which sectors would be hurt? I mean, any sector with a significant export to the U.S. So that would be. I mean, it would include heavy industry like steel, and it includes pharmaceuticals. It includes. I mean, it's about cars. It's about a lot of things. But suffice to say that with the high targets, he is targeting sectors that are economically important to the European economy. But I mean, I think it's crucial to mention the what he's trying to achieve with the European Union, particularly in these days, because I mean, in the end, what he's seeking is not lower tariffs on the European side. The tariffs for U.S. goods into Europe are minuscule. So, I mean, 2-3%. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, the U.S. economy would gain absolutely nothing by removing tariffs altogether, having tariffs removed. So, what he's going for instead is a series of European regulations, European laws, that he says impedes trade from the U.S. to Europe. And that's about a lot of things. That's about food standards. It's about even issues that are included in climate policy. It's about the conditions that big tech platforms operate under in Europe. It's about taxation. Yeah. So I mean, you have to see the current negotiations between the EU and the United States to be about something that is, so to say, much closer to home than tariffs. It's about the rules that we impose on European and American companies alike.
Absolutely. And this really links with the second topic that we wanted to address, which is the deregulation. And it is a part of the perfect storm that you mentioned at the beginning of your article. So what are the other two components of this chaotic scenario that is happening now? How did we get here?
To understand why deregulation is unfolding in the European Union at the level that we now know, you have to be aware of two developments. happened in the years 2022, 23, 24. The first is that in mid 22, a number of corporate lobby groups teamed up to have the European Commission and the European Council change the direction of politics in the European Union dramatically. It was in the aftermath of the invasion of Ukraine, and energy prices shot up, and that made them initiate a push on the political level to open an era of deregulation. And that continued all the way through 22, 23, and 24. And in mid 24, it was crystal clear that the coming years in EU politics will be different from what we have known recently. There's a very single-minded focus on alleviating the so-called regulatory burden on companies, and that will apply across the board. It has already taken its toll on climate policy. It will continue into various other areas. We will see privacy rules in the digital area be amended. We will see lots of initiatives that we expected be dropped, such as a ban on PFAS, on forever chemicals. So that's one development. The second one is more about why this can actually be carried out in practice. We had elections last year in June, European elections. And after the elections, we now have a European Parliament in which the center right, or the Conservatives, command a majority with the far right. And they are totally silly with the deregulation agenda. So, I mean, the political conditions are there to implement a sweeping campaign of deregulation.
Yes, and you have identified 5 different aspects of this deregulation campaign. So can you walk us through those 5 aspects kind of briefly?
Sure. I mean, aspects. It's more like you could call it a crash course in European deregulation. It's about 5 terms they use, um, which can appear to be very very nebulous. The first one is competitiveness. Competitiveness is a word. I mean, that's kind of a words that's used all the time in European institutions. It's been like that for 20, 25 years, or even since the very beginning of the European Union in the early 90s. And on that, there's a complete hysteria about competitiveness at the moment. Anything that businesses might consider, any rule that businesses might feel could be detriment to their global competitiveness is a potential subject of being removed or stricken. On that, it's just important to say that there's very rarely any substance. There's often absolutely no substance behind the claims when the Commission or business groups point out some rule that should be stricken to support competitiveness. Very often, it's quite simply it's a very simple attempt to support the business side of things and to prioritize business over any other interest in society.
Before we go on to the other 4 keywords, there is one anecdote about competitiveness that Kenneth loves to share, and I've asked him to tell it when we recorded together. And competitiveness is a term that was introduced in EU lingo by one of the most important corporate lobby groups ever, the European Roundtable for Industry, or ERT. To give you an idea of how Corporate Europe Observatory's history is so intertwined with the ERT, one of the first actions that CEO did was to occupy the building of the ERT. And you can listen to that amazing story in episode 36 of this podcast. I really, really recommend it. But anyway, the ERT has been along since the 80s, and they are a bit like the Mickey Mouse Club for the biggest European companies. And the European Commission considers the ERT as one of the most important consiglieri, the advisors when big decisions are to be taken. So they are super powerful.
Competitiveness has been so important to the ERT since the very beginning. That begs the question: what do they mean by it? I mean, do they have some fancy academic description somewhere in their files? Turns out they don't really. I mean, an interview given 20, 25 years ago to a Dutch academic had one of the senior staff of the ERT say that, well, competitiveness actually, it's like a paper bag that you can put things into. And by that he meant, I mean, don't ask for a logical or scientifical definition, because really what competitiveness is about, it's about whatever businesses feel is in their interest at a given moment.
Let's go back to the keywords, and the second one is simplification.
You could say that deregulation has become kind of a Danish minister said it recently that it's kind of a taboo in the EU to say deregulation when you're from the Commission or from corporate lobby groups. You don't use the term deregulation because it has such a negative ring to it. So instead they say simplification. Simplification is in the end, I mean, now we've spent 6 months seeing one deregulation initiatives be introduced after the other. It's not. I mean, fundamentally, when they say that simplification, it's an attempt to make reality obscure and make it easier for them to introduce reforms.
So, by now we have deregulation, simplification, which they keep insisting is not deregulation, and the next word is stress testing.
That term is important because it indicates the level of ambition that they have reached with the deregulation campaign. Um, Stress testing is about going through all existing EU laws, and figure out how they can be simplified, so to speak. So every commissioner has been asked to look at the relevant laws in their area and figure out where they can cut so as to reduce the regulatory burden on companies. That's what stress testing means, and it's beginning to. I mean, the number of laws that are up for simplification after stress testing is piling up.
Stress testing also begs for another funny piece of information from Kenneth. Former Italian Prime Minister and European Central Bank President Mario Draghi was hired by the Commission to write a report called The Future of European Competitiveness. In it, how was it suggested that the stress testing of the EU acquis should be done?
Yeah, that's one of the most amazing parts of the Draghi report, really. I mean, it's not, and it's been commented on way too little because, I mean, on paper, the European Commission has now set out to investigate all EU laws. And by that, I mean, there are thousands of EU laws. Even, I mean, if you only look at the number of laws under the single market, it's in the thousands. It's 7,000 laws, and I don't know how many pages, but it's if you take all EU laws together, it's probably more than 100,000 pages. And this is, I mean, it's laws in legal language. So how do you take such a document, 100,000 pages plus, and figure out where to simplify rules so as to support competitiveness? I mean, it's an impossible task, it seems. And the proposal from Draghi, amazingly, is to use artificial intelligence. Put the whole thing into a computer and let's see what comes out at the other end. I mean, what can possibly go wrong?
Yes, thank you.
The fourth keyword is omnibus. Omnibus is the talk of the town in Brussels, and it's not a new term. It has been used before. An omnibus law is when you take several laws and you amend them in one go.
In this phase, it was reintroduced in the Brussels lingo by a coalition of corporate lobby groups. They organized a meeting in Antwerp last year, the famous Antwerp Declaration meeting, in which they produced a statement with 10 demands for the new term. And the first demand was to have an omnibus that would simplify all EU regulation in one omnibus law. That's not what they're getting. They're not getting an omnibus law that will change everything in one go. I think that's a feverish fantasy in the first place. But they are getting lots of smaller omnibuses. I think at the moment we're up to 9 or 10 different plans to do omnibuses. None of them have been fully agreed yet by the institutions, but they are being prepared. And I mean, even the first one about sustainable reporting has created a lot of stir among environmental groups and human rights groups. It's pretty clear that these omnibuses are exceptionally dangerous because achievements they've thousands of people have spent years on can be rolled back just like that. In the case of the first omnibus, we're looking at changes or weakening of laws that entered into force only a year ago. So this is about a European Union that is eating away even the feeble, even the small results from recent years are being taken off, are being weakened.
The last buzzword are the implementation dialogues.
The reason why it's important to know about implementation dialogues is because it tells you about how this this deregulation push will be developed going forward. Implementation dialogues, all European commissioners are supposed to set up 2 implementation dialogues each and every year. And at those dialogues, they are supposed to identify laws that should be up for simplification. The participants, according to the main strategic documents of the Commission, are to be the companies themselves. So not a whole lot of stakeholders, not a very group of trade unionists and environmental groups and financial experts or academics. It's supposed to be business lobby groups themselves who are to work closely with the Commission to set the priorities going forward. And it's not, I mean, it's definitely not the first time that we in Corporate Europe Observatory that we come across advisory groups that are dominated by corporate lobby groups. But this, I mean, this kind of, I think the implementation dialogues takes this whole culture to a new level. To have commissioners consult with companies 2 times every year to identify laws that should be weakened. I mean, that's new. We've seen expert groups that would have sort of the same ring to it in the past, but this is structural. This is something that will be ongoing for the next 4 years, and it will help the Commission ensure that steam is kept up, that the momentum is kept on deregulation. So what we've seen the past 6 months, and we're only 6-7 months into the new term, this is just the beginning. We've only seen the surface. We know about a lot of plans for deregulation, but we haven't got the full picture yet, because the full picture will be developing all through the whole term.
I just wanted to comment that I was talking to some friends about your 5 buzzwords, and we think like if we had to add a 6th one on the word of media, it's innovation. That innovation is also one of those words that are often used, and you really don't know what it means beside job losses, basically. Um, but besides, related to these 5 words that, like, basically outside the EU bubble, no one knows what they mean, but still they're very important. If you could comment on what is the impact on people, or to put it like more in a different way, is like why. I don't know. My mother in Italy should care. How can it impact also people outside the bubble?
To explain why these five terms matter, I mean, we have to begin with the importance of EU legislation. I mean, in Italy and in Denmark, you don't set your own food standards. They are decided on in Brussels. You cannot decide to ban this or that chemical or this or that toxic food, or I mean, that is decided in Brussels. So once you have a machinery that is hell bent on reducing the regulatory burden on companies, it brings a lot of things into danger that are important to people's lives. I mean, could be food standards, could be about chemicals, and really, I mean, everything is brought into play in Brussels at the moment, even rules on the labor market. Um, Under the banner of innovation, it is considered to allow companies to simply ignore local labor laws, and even tax laws, to support innovation and reduce the regulatory burden. So, I mean, when someone says, well, we want to simplify regulation, we want to stress test EU laws, and we want to do omnibuses to please businesses, it's I mean, this it's not something different. It's something that will touch on people's lives. It can be relevant to the food they eat, to the environment they live in, and to conditions on their workplace.
I might have another question. Because you were saying that like this regulation push is led by the EPP and backed by the far right. However, last year during the European election, the EPP was talking about not cooperating with them and to implement the so-called cordon sanitaire. However, I think since day 2 of the new parliament, this had not worked. So why do you think it's like this is happening, and what do you think are like the other political parties, like social democrats and so on, doing to prevent them?
I mean, I was never very convinced when the conservatives started speaking about the cordon sanitaire, because I mean, they have the power, they have the option to implement policies with the far right, and if it's in their interest, they will do it. That's what I thought back then, and I think that is the case. And I base that on an interview given by the leader of the Conservatives of the EPP, Ferber, only recently. I mean, to a Brussels media called Politico, and his message was this. I mean, we really would like to implement our policies with the center left and the Greens, but if that is not possible, then we'll have to go elsewhere because we won the European elections last year. So that's basically the message. Um, I'm not saying that the conservatives will necessarily go for working with the far right and have it all served on a silver platter. I mean, sometimes they would prefer to work with the social democrats, for instance. But I mean, they are in the leading position, and they've made that clear on so many occasions. Now, how do the Social Democrats and the Greens and the left respond to that? Uh, I mean, the elections last year pulled the European politics to the right. And the effect we see in the S&D is that they would often tend to support policies that are not really to their liking in order to prevent the EPP from going with the far right instead.
I have no more questions.
I have just a final one, which is so when people hear this, what can they do? I mean, so that it's not a hopeless thing? Like, how can people, organize to do something about it?
As time goes by, options or let's say opportunities for successful resistance will be there. I think looking at the plans for deregulation, it is quite a mouthful, and I do think that the European Commission and the Council and the European right, they are taking on a lot of different segments in the European population in one go. Um, I think it will be, in the end, it will be difficult for them to have it all because there will be resistance, and I think it will. I think it will be. It depends on where you are, but if you are someone connected to an organization at the national level, um, there will be times when resistance is needed and is relevant at the national level. Um, let me take an example. The example of PFAS is instructive, I think. Because at the moment, plans are to reduce regulation or bans of PFAS to a bare minimum. It will be about consumer goods. It will not be about industrial use. To put it simply. I think that in the countries where we've suffered from heavy PFAS pollution, that's a no-go in the medium term. I don't think that message will be accepted at the national level. I think there will be local resistance and there will be pressure on governments to act. Another example is that the European Commission is gearing up to attacks on national labor laws. That has never been something that went down easily. You cannot allow companies to ignore national labor laws or national trade unions even through a decree from Brussels. That's not how what reality looks like. There will be resistance. So I don't expect. I don't think resistance to all this will not. It will in part come from groups that are able to address the whole machinery, such as many of the groups in Brussels, such as our own Corporate Europe Observatory. But a lot of the momentum and the impetus and the blocks for this plan will have to unfold at the national level, and I think it will come as soon as it's become, let's say, more clear to people what this entails. I think we will see a pushback.
And this is a wrap for today. If you got to the end of the podcast with us, thank you very much for listening. And we look forward presenting you another episode. If you haven't done so already, you can follow us on our social media. You can subscribe to our newsletter. Also, if you like movies, we will come back to you with some exciting news. And if you like this episode, please share it among your network because it can be really helpful for us. And see you soon. Ciao.